Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So in the last episode, we were able to complete the homepage design, and today we are going to be moving on to our next task. So if we come back to the Trello board, we are done with this and we can drag to done. And we'll be looking at the next task. Let's drag it to doing. So taking a look at the new task, it involves integrating the special section, the latest blocks, and the top blocks. So that's the focus. And let's get started with that. So coming back to our UI, just to establish what we're going to be working with, here is the special section, here is the latest blocks, and here's the top blocks, okay? And if you remember, during our backend development, we really don't have an implementation for the special block. However, I've gone back to update this. So if you come back to Juice, I hope you remember juice.io, and within juice.io, here is my block grid project, and here is the app. And if you remember, we used to have 4 models. However, it's now 5. And the special block model is the new model I just added. And if we check through this, all it does is just add a single field referencing the block. So this is referencing the blocks. So what this means is, as a separate model, we can directly access it. And the intention for this model is such that even though we have our blocks, we can just specify a specific block as being our special block. So take note, this is a one-to-one field, and yeah, we just have this. And there is no specialty in ordering because at any point in time, this is expected to be a single block. Okay, so that was it in regards to that. Then the same thing, we have the serializer, just abstracting that. Then we have the views. And if we check the view, this is all we have. So it's returning all data. It's just going to be a single data at the end of the day. And there is nothing much in the view. Then finally, we have the URLs. So a major update I've added to the Juice app along the line was the test server. So now with the test server, you can start a server and actually see what your project looks like before you download and start using locally. And instead of downloading this locally, I, as the creator of juice.io, have decided to give myself enough time to test the server. So it's going to be limited to just 10 minutes, but as the owner, I've decided to give myself 1 hour. And I believe 1 hour should be enough to showcase what we are going to do in this episode. So as you can see, I've started the test server and it's running, and the time remaining is 59.4 something seconds. So if I click on this, then I can access the API I just created. So we'll be using this along the line. So now that we've established that, let's take a look at our UI once again, and let's go back to our code. So back in our code, in our last episode, I omitted something. So if you remember, within our single block comment, we defined it such that it takes in slot as a parameter. However, within the page where we are using it, we didn't specify that. So we can just send slot as being a string, and that should fit that. So this is really not an issue for us now because we're not yet bothered about the single block page. Our focus is just still the index page. So we have these 3 components that we want to integrate our API with. So again, we are going to start with the special block. However, before we start with our integration, I want to quickly go back to the API and provide the required data we need. Alright guys, so here is what I've filled out. We have 4 blocks in total, and this is just random content that I've decided to point together. And here is the block list, and if you come back to the API root and to the tag URL, we'll see the list of tags as well. Although our focus is not here with the tag menu. And back to the root, we don't have any comment at the moment, and our focus is not with the comment. Same with the image, we did not use any image within our block. But for the top block, we are going to get the same list as with the block itself. And this is because we don't have any comment, and so there is no filtering going on yet. Then finally, for the special block, we do not have any at the moment. And all we have to do for this is just specify a block ID. I think 1 should do. And we are good. And this is going to act as our special block for now. So that was it in regards to the data setup. Now we can go back to our code and actually implement something. So we're going to be pulling our data through the server. And with the latest Next.js, the structure is a bit funny now, and we're going to get to see that later on. So for now, let's go back to our root directory and create a new folder. I'm going to call this folder utils. And within utils, we are going to have server, okay? And server is just going to be a TS file. Also, I'll be making use of Axios to make my request, and as such, I'm going to install Axios. Alright, so now that we have Axios installed, we can import it here. So one thing to notice, if we come back to our API, we'll find out that every API we are accessing belongs to the block part. So that means we can control our request just by a parameter, and the parameter itself would be the endpoint we want. So here we can copy this, and here we can have const base URL plus to this. So this is our base parts. And I'm going to define a function to make a request to the backend and get the required data. So I'm going to define the function get data, and this is going to be an asynchronous function because it's going to have to do some process we are not sure when it's going to complete. And this function is going to take in a parameter of string, and I'll call this endpoint. So one thing we want to do with our function is we want to specify a generics for the return type. And that's because we are going to make this defined based on who is calling this function. This function is going to be used to get information about the special blocks, the same thing for the top blocks and so on. And for those can be the same as blocks. However, for the comments is going to be a different scenario, and we have to control that as well. So in here, we can have a generic like this, and that means we want to return a promise of that same generic. However, now we've not returned anything, so yeah, we have to do that. So I can say const requests equals to await Axios.get, going to base URL plus endpoints, and better still, we can have that within a string representation as $base URL then $endpoints, like that. And that's all we have to do here. We don't have to do anything. Then next, I want to cache an error in case an error exists. So this is usually needed so that we don't have to check for what is within the requests. Because if we did not cache here, then that means we have to check if there is an error within the request or not. But if we cache here, then we've cached the error. The only thing that can be in the request is either the response or nothing. So it will be nothing if we are expecting nothing or if there is an error. So here for now, I'm just going to console log error. So again, we can check if requests, and that is if everything was successful. Then we want to return requests as, or rather request.data as T. However, we are going to have an issue here because we are expecting a promise of T only. And what are we expecting to return if there is no result? So we want to expect a promise of T or null. So if there's no result, then we want to return null. And as you can see, we don't have any error again. And that's our function defined. So coming back to our special block, and with the latest Next.js, we can make your request directly within the components. And if the request is directly within the component, then it's going to be seen as a server component. So here is what I mean. I can say special, or rather const special block equals to await. So let's see if we've exported our function. We didn't, so let's export it. So export const get data. I'll save that. So await get data, like that. So we're expecting a parameter here. So let's confirm what the endpoint for the special block is. So we'll copy this. I'll go back to our code. Let's take a look at the base URL. So the base URL does not have an ending slash. Let's add that because we are going to need it every time. And back here, we can specify the parameter as this. Then before we can await anything, then the function has to be an asynchronous function. So that's fixed, but an error is going to appear within our page. We are going to get to that later on. But whatever request happens here is going to be a server request. So that means the request has to fully load before anything can be rendered. So that's a new thing with Next.js 13, and it's quite cool. So if we come back to the page, how do we fix this error? Alright, so here is me coming to check for the error, and that error is a common thing within Next.js. So as you can see, TypeScript seems to be lagging behind. It's not really aware of the latest update with Next.js. And according to TypeScript, it's not expecting that kind of structure. So yeah, that's why it's complaining within our code that this should not be an async function. It should be a component. So to fix that, we just have to tell Next.js to ignore. And the way to ignore is by using this flag. So we can copy this. And all we have to do is just place it above it, and it's going to fix that error. And as you can see, the error is gone, and we still have the same results. And because this is a server-side content, if we console log the results, it's going to come in through the server. So special block. So we can only see this if we check our log here. So let's go refresh the page. So page refreshed, and as you can see, we are getting our data. So one more thing we didn't do is we did not specify the type of data we want. So we can do that by coming here and saying, here we are expecting an array of iSpecialBlock. Alright, so the next thing we want to do now is to render our content. However, if you remember, this function can either return what is specified as the type or a null. And we want to make sure we check for the null. So we want to say if not special block, then we want to just return a null. So you can return a null from a component. However, if special block exists, then we want to change this to special block.tag.name, or rather, this has to be a single one because by default it's going to be an array of it. Then we can just spread the special block itself here. And with that, we are done with this. We can remove it and we are good to go. So let's take a look at what this is. So let's refresh. Another property name of undefined. Okay, that's not expected. Let's take a look. Oh, I see. So from what I can see here, if we go back to the page, so as you can see here, the special block itself is not directly an I block, but a subset of block. So to fix this, all we have to do is create a special type, and I can quickly create one here, interface iSpecialBlock v2. So we can use something else, but I just want to use that. And within iSpecialBlock, we can now reference iSpecialBlock itself. So what we are expecting here is going to be an array of this. Then this is now going to become .block.tag.name. Then this is going to be .block. Okay? So let's take a look again and see what the result gives us. And as we can see, we have our result. So this is for block 1, and this is tech. And the picture itself is not doing well, so that's why you probably want to find the best image for this. So there we have it, we have the special block, and we are good to go. So the next line of action is to implement the latest block, and that should be quite easy. So if we come back to our code, all we have to do is copy this, and let's go back to the block list, and we paste this here. So again, this is going to become async. And in this case, this is going to be iBlock. For the URL here, let's get the URL we'll be needing. So I'm needing the blog URL. I'll paste this here. And this will be blocks. We import this function. So what we want to do here is, if this result is null, then I want to make this or empty array. Okay? So that means we are always going to get something. So if our get data returns null, then blocks by default is going to be an empty array. Then we don't have to make any check. So with that done, we can just use this instead of the block contents. So we just mark this, and we want to get the block. And this is what we are going to be spreading here now. And that's all we have to do. And we can remove this. So let's take a look at, oh, okay. Before we move, let's go to the page and fix this as well. And that should fix that. And let's check design. And as you can see, we are having an issue. And that's because we are sending the cover, and because the cover is part of the whole thing. So we want to correct that first before moving to the next stage. So to fix this issue, we can either come back to our block card to readjust things, but we don't want to do that. And the only thing causing this particular issue is the cover. So all we have to do is just find the means to ensure that the cover is not being sent. And we can come here and say cover equals to none. And we specifying that cover equals to undefined here is going to override whatever is specified here already. And if we check our UI, we'll find out that we no longer have cover. So let's refresh just to confirm. And as you can see, we no longer have cover. And that's the fix for that. So I can format this to make it look more readable. Then finally, we have the top blocks. So again, we'll just copy everything we have here. Come down to the top block. We can remove this. Paste this here. Also, we're going to make this an async function. I'm going to import this. Okay, don't need the bracket there. So let's come back to our API to get the top block URL. So here is the top block endpoint. Come back to our code and replace it. And again, we are going to change this. And this is going to become block. And replace this with block. Then finally, the top block does not have the caption section. So we can as well just remove it. Caption equals to undefined. Like that. And we can format and fix that. Let's save this. So coming back to our page, we can as well put this in. And we'll be good as well. So let's come back to our page. And there we have it. So here is our integration and it's looking good. And that's the requirement for the task as defined by the Trello board, as you can see. So we've integrated a special section. We have the latest blocks as well as the top blocks. And that's all we have to do. So we can drag this to done. And just take a look at everything and see that it's working. And we are good to go. So there you have it, guys. We are going to continue from here in the next episode. Bye for now.